Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy, and I went and done it. I got the Majestic Earth Tarot, Storm and Wonder by J.D. Hildegard Hinkle. So this has been out for a few months, a little while, but this is kind of to announce it's on Amazon now, because that's what happened. I was on Amazon, and I wasn't even looking at my wish list, I don't think, and it just, poing, it just popped up and said, hey, this is here. So, so yeah, for anybody who's interested in doing the FOMO thing, wanting to jump on it. So I'm going to walk through it. When I first saw this deck, it may just be an art deck for me. It's really hard to say, and when I first saw it, that's pretty much what I thought. I thought, you know what, I can't get too enthusiastic because I'm not seeing where she's coming from with some of the choices of her images. Maybe because the people were often very, very small. But then, I don't know why I was looking another time, or maybe I started, instead of watching a video, I looked at the images on, Google or something like that. And then I was like, all right, I'm getting it now. I'm getting it. And thought, yeah, I want to give that a try. I want to see if I can make that work as a tarot deck. And I've gone through it, and I feel that I can. But but it's one of those things where I'm just not 100% sure how well it will read. But the art is beautiful, and really, I just sort of bought it for the sake of the art, I have to confess. But I am willing to give it a try. So we're going to do a walkthrough here. This is the backs of the deck. Some people early on who got some of the first decks complained of having some printer problems with the printing, where there would be splotchiness here or white little places where it's missing color. That is not true of any of the cards in this deck that I saw. Some people, I think, did complain a little bit about the cardstock. I can see why they would. It could potentially be accident prone, but I'm not going to complain because I've got weak hands. So if I end up really wanting to use this deck, I need the cardstock to be usable. I need it to be a little flimsy. So let's go through. And I'm going to bring this really close sometimes so that you can see, like, if I hold this back, you're hardly seeing any of the image. And what I ended up doing with these cards is getting a lighted magnifying glass and looking really closely. And so I think one of the keys for me for some of the cards was to think more about the landscape being the character in the picture, as opposed to automatically here you see there's a person on a cliff with a harp of all things. Okay, so it looks like he's being foolish. And then you've got a bunch of people down here. Looks like they're out for a bit of a holiday or something with those umbrellas. Camera is not wanting to focus on those. But then you have this castle up on a cliff. Come on, focus. So this might not work very well with my camera. It doesn't want to focus. Anyway, you've got that castle. And if anything, the castle also is a fool, or the people who have built a castle there are kind of foolish. you know. And so to me, there's more than one thing sitting on a cliff that ends up being, or that is on a cliff that ends up being precarious. So, let me see, how do I want to do this? I'll do, yeah. And then the Magician, and I can see here there's, it's interesting that it's a conquistador. But you have rock, you've got actually a sword there. It looks like he's got a sword in his hand. You're doing as above, as in the Saint Mary there. So below, you know, she's actually in a cave under the ground. So an interesting association there. And you've got some swirling, well, it looks like you've got some mountain peaks there and swirling in the distance. So I haven't looked at all of you know, all of, she's got the artists in here, the names of the art, and I think probably it would be really interesting for many of these images to get a get a little information on the internet about that particular piece of art and where it is and what was going on and why, that kind of thing. There is an extra card that has a little bit, shows the different artists, although that is also included in the guidebook. There's a fair amount of room in the box. It's not too cramped, so that's nice. Alright, get on with it. So High Priestess, and I think, see, this is one of the cards I looked and I think it's the mountain. To me, it's the mountain, the mute mountain that is the High Priestess. And this might be somebody coming to consult the High Priestess. I believe it is a woman. No, come on. Do I need to hold it one way, hold it another way? I don't know. Maybe because of the oh, I do see some of what they might be talking about. Some of the people, you see there's this red here, and there's might be a question whether that's true to the original painting or not. I don't know. It doesn't disturb me greatly. I didn't notice it the first time I looked at the card. But it might be that these cards are not defined enough for it to, for the webcam to focus. I don't think, I probably shouldn't make excuses for my webcam because it gives me problems focusing all the time anyway. The Emperor's Domain, again, so if you're back here you might not be able to see it, but there's a bull right there, or a cow sitting in the flowers, you know, and the cow is often in animal decks, will represent the Empress. You could also see maybe the tree as the Empress. The Emperor's Domain. And so this is interesting because to me this is, although it doesn't have what we would normally associate maybe coldness with the Emperor, it doesn't have that, but it's very dry, sort of inhospitable. If this is supposed to be the Grand Canyon, and I don't know if it is, but you can see that the canyon goes way, way down, and there's, you know, there's air there for the, you know, the sorty mental stuff is kind of coming down here. But there's a couple of different aspects, if this is the Grand Canyon, where this works, and that is that he might be dry and inhospitable, but he's deep. Okay, he's deep. And the other is that I often think when I see the Emperor, I think of boundaries, the need to set boundaries, or guard your boundaries, that kind of thing. And that's essentially what the Grand Canyon ended up being when whoever it was that was coming north hit the Grand Canyon, there was nowhere to go. It was really kind of an ultimate boundary. They must have eventually gone around. I don't know if they turned back. So much for my history. But I spent some time at the Grand Canyon, and so I remember that. The Hierophant's domain. And so again, I kind of think of the church itself as being the Hierophant here. Structure, ordered. You've got the black and white, just like you have the black and white checkerboard that he's on the ground, I think. And the Lovers. So I don't think, we've got the swans here, which is lovely, but I think of the Lovers in this card as being more like the landscape with the houses, the natural with the man-made. I mean, that's kind of the opposites that are here, is the man-made and the natural. And it looks like the ivy is crawling up and clinging all over, the buildings and stuff like that. And of course, there's the watery element there for emotion. The Chariot, this one I feel a little less connected to. It's interesting that they chose a watery. And you do have the kind of a chariot down here, some sort of conveyance. Yep. Strength. So you have the lions. I'm kind of wondering what's over on, what was it? On one side I thought I saw something. I don't know. So I wonder if this is taken from a larger image. It's like, well, what is this? Did they break a rope of some kind? Or is that like a tree or a vine? And what is this down here? Are they bones? So I feel like there's more to this story. And again, if I think of the landscape as being, is the landscape the thing taming the lions, or the lions the thing taming the landscape? So I just look at it sort of that way. Yep, this is on the cover of the box. The Hermit. And this is definitely about, the Hermit is definitely the person here. Whisper of Fortune. So you've got a skull there, and then you have, I think of Ozymandias, King of Kings, and I don't know what exactly that poem refers to, but it is essentially this, at one time you were so great, somebody created, giant monuments to you, but the Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel of Time, destroyed all of it, or nearly all of it, and this person seems to be in a bad situation. So that makes sense to me. And it's also interesting that it is a desert, and how the desert encroaches over time. This is interesting as the Council of Law. That this is one of those pictures I would want to find out a little bit more about. It does seem to be people like arguing or considering things or discussing things. And again, this tends to be one that I see as just being about the people more than the landscape. Upturned. So this is the Hanged Man. I don't know, this feels more towery to me, but is there a man hanging there? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's the Hanged Man right there. Death. Death looks kind of tranquil. There are other cards in here that I think are death-ish or would be good death cards. But you got the skull there again. You know, you could see this. Oh, I see there's a waterfall there as transformation. You know, you have to dare to move forward. If you're going to get out of this situation where you've got the skull, you're going to have to take a risk and cross the water, enter the water, cross the water. This temperance, which I really don't get is temperance, but that's all right. You know, she strikes me as more maybe an empress, but when I first saw this card, it's like, oh my God, how could that not be the Queen of Wands? I don't know how that could not be the Queen of Wands, but that's all right. The Tempest for the Devil. I don't know if that's supposed to represent a face. One of the things I found interesting is that this is obviously very high. You've got a mountain in the background giving you a little perspective there, and then the plains way in the distance, and then the clouds rather close. And you know, when you have high places like that, they often, you know, kind of create their own storm. So it is like storms are chained to the mountains. You know, they are bound to the mountains. So and the mountains, when they reach that height, they're going to produce storms. It's not going to be a calm atmosphere. The Tower, in which you have a bunch of like boats that I don't know if they were tied to a wharf or something, but everything is coming down. The safe harbor is in jeopardy. Aurora, and that doesn't seem like Aurora to me, but that's all right. I can take it. And so we've got these, I don't know if this is Tree of Life type things or runes that are over here. You know, they've got the elements over there and some keywords. And I don't think that will bother me because the artwork really stands out. And I could see myself pretty much ignoring this stuff down here. I wouldn't want to mess with the gold gilding at this point by trimming, and I just don't have the patience to trim. I love this moon landscape because you've got, and I think you've got a fisherman down right here. I think you've got a figure. Again, my webcam isn't going to pick it up, but I like how, you know, even though it's that diffuse light of the moon, the way the artist has done it. And I've kind of seen this, you know, it lights on the water, and it's creating a path. So very nice moon card. And the sun is just right there, the sun card. Judgment, we've got some funny flying figures here. It's like an angel escorting. I think that other person has wings too, but you can't tell. And you know, they're passing over this grotto kind of area. So, so a lot of the elements of traditional judgment. The world, you know, it's got plants, you know, in this deck. Well, it doesn't have much in the way of air. In this deck, clouds are the airiness, or swords. And then trees, literally trees, are for wands. And then I think it's just water is for cups. So clouds, yep, clouds, and then stone is for pentacles. Ace of stone, which again, it's not about this, and it's not about a seed, it's about this. It's almost like the sacred mountain, or what materially is so large that it orients you. Two of stone, interesting with a bridge there, so you're kind of between, she's actually on a donkey on a bridge. Three of stones. So there's another one in here. There are 8 of stones, or 8 of pentacles, strikes me as more 3 of stone. But I can accept this. I'm not sure 100% what they're doing there, but that's alright. 4 of stone. I could have seen this more as maybe a 3 of wands, but 4 of stone. So maybe holding on to the ruins, worshiping the ruins kind of a thing. 5 of stone, and again, if you're back here, you can hardly see, but there's all kinds of stuff going on here. You see, you've got a man, oh, the webcam, and it looks like he's got crutches he's cast off, and he is in front of a cross. And in the background, there is the castle. And although I could certainly see that as 5 of pentacles, I almost, I get almost more of a 4 of swords, and the 4 of swords in this deck has no person in it. It's just a oh no, I can't remember the name of those big stone things where they put bodies. Anyway, yeah, it's a big stone thing where there's a body. Does it start with a C? That's what I'll do the Alice in Wonderland who does that. All right, 6 of pentacles, giving to the lesser critters who are dependent on them. 7 of stones, so 7 of pentacles. So he's kind of looking back at his little, well, it looks like a barn. It doesn't even look like his house. But then what's up on the hill? You know, you're going to compare yourself to the estate on the hill and decide whether or not you're satisfied. Or if you're going to keep working or do something different. 8 of pentacles. Here's the one that struck me, just because there's more than one person and they're doing the stone working, as being more 3. But it's also 8. You know, and you've got that in the background. 9 of pentacles. I do kind of miss having an animal there, but it works. It also has a 2 of wands feel to it. The 10, this is a really interesting take on the 10, where you have the more contemporary building kind of in the shadow of the old, probably an abbey, the old abbey. So when we get to the courts, we have steward, rider, creature, and spirit, I believe. Yeah, and spirit. Not sure how I feel about that yet. The steward of stone is really interesting because, like here, the steward, it's like the steward is made of stone. I don't think this girl is the steward, although she's there. I think the statue is somehow the steward, and not a steward of stone, as in guarding over the stone, but a steward, like it looks like Mother Mary, a steward made of stone. So it's kind of interesting. Rider of stone. It looks like he's delivering a message having to do with the very practical aspects. Actually, it looks like it's a woman. Kind of the practical aspects of life. She's definitely a rural maiden. Creature of stone. It's like, well, once you get into this area up in here, it's not really going to be deer. Although, are those, could we, yeah, that could be elk. Could be. Could be that that's supposed to be elk, because that's what would be, or up in the higher, the most rocky areas would be more bighorns and goats, sheep and goats. Spirit of stone. So this is interesting because in areas that I've been at, formations like this would be called like hoodoos and are supposed to be spirits of a sort. Now that I look at it, this actually looks a bit on the phallic side. So take what you want from that. But you can also even think of, lesser spirits and then greater spirits and then, higher. Kind of levels of aspiration, even something like that, of material aspiration. Ace of clouds. So clouds being the suit of swords. It's very red. Red skies at morning. Sailors take warning. Maybe that's what she meant by that. The first time I looked at this, I thought, all right, whatever. Two of clouds. So this one's a little difficult for me, just because my eye comes here. Now you could say the birds represent the clouds, and you've got black and you've got white, but a very different feel, because in the Two of Swords, she's comparing things that are, for all purposes, look exactly the same. So this is where I'm inclined to look and where kind of the activity is. So if I were going to clouds, I would look up there, and that doesn't speak to me. Oops. So I don't think that these, as I'm talking about these and just sort of wrestling with it a little bit, these aren't things that I'm mentioning that put me off from the deck so much as things that I'm noticing, so that I get to know the cards, how they're different from the Rider-Waite-Smith system, and how I might interpret them differently from either the Rider-Waite-Smith system or differently from the assignment that the creator of the deck has given it. So Three of Clouds or Three of Swords. It's going to say, well, this looks a little bit like a heart here, a little bit, but I think essentially here it is the clouds. That's what you've got. You've got that bleak, dark, foreboding, that sharpness of that rock. This looks very painful. The Four of Clouds or the Four of Swords. Now you do have four prominent, 1, 2, 3, 4, but of course those are stones. So this is what we look like, that the Fool in the first, the Fool playing the harp in the first card, and the 0 card may have met his demise. There's his harp. So yeah, there's no person here. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure what to make of that. this works for me as the Five of Swords, because it's like Mother Nature used a little bit too much force. The storm was, you know, the rain that might have nourished this tree and kept it alive in its precarious place here among the rocks went too far, was too violent, and destroyed it instead of nurturing it. 6 makes sense, but there are other ones that work just as well. There's at least one other one that strikes me as a 6. So you do have a person, 2 people in, looks like a barge. Yeah, so 7 of Swords. So this almost strikes me as 7 of Cups-ish, because you've got all those clouds there. So I'm not sure how that would be. What does she say? Stealth, scheme, chance, hope. Yeah. Not sure. There is like some kind of, you see that orange there, like there's some encampment down there or something. The clouds would certainly conceal this rider from people down below, but 8. So this strikes me as a more serious situation than the traditional 8 of Swords. You know, you're pretty darn stuck there. It's hard to deny that, you know, as being just a mental situation that needs to be figured out. But anyway, being trapped. And I guess, you know, I could see this. They have had to, so you're almost, this is like the after 8 of Swords, where the people have sort of figured out, well, you know, we're going to have to lower one of the boats, and we're going to have to figure out another way to either get out, back out, get where we're going, get out of this situation. The 9 of Swords has a figure barely hanging on over a precipice. It's really hard to see why he's there to begin with. But yeah, definitely a card of foreboding. Isn't this beautiful? I don't really see how it's the 10 of Swords, but it is gorgeous. It's a black and white image. I've never seen this before. I might have to look it up. This almost feels more like judgment to me. Very interesting. Even the High Priestess, this person seems to be there to, if not consulting, then again, like judgment, either allowing people to pass through or not, granting them permission. So it could have been actually the Hierophant. Let me look. 10 of Clouds is called Monastery Graveyard in the Snow. So that's where we're getting the 10, is that something is over. Does that? I'm just looking for gravestones. So, and I'm not really seeing them, but there is another card that does have gravestones. It might be this one, the Steward of Clouds. So if you look at this, so the steward, can you see that there is a figure? Let me get my old pointer. There is a figure right here. You can barely see it. So it truly is a steward of air. There is a spirit right here, flying towards you. This is the face. So, and that, again, that looks like a graveyard back in there. Oh, now it's going to, you see, there's that figure right there. Looks a little demonish to me. But it looks like there's gravestones and a cross. Like this is an old graveyard. And yet, there's this wreath up here. It looks like there's a couple of birds in it. So very evocative image, very interesting. Rider of clouds. Oh, we got some cool clouds up there. And we've got a dark rider, a hooded dark rider charging off there. The creature of clouds, I'm guessing those are a bunch of rooks. I feel like I need to look up rooks. I'm not that familiar with them. But that makes sense to me. And then the spirit of clouds, which is just like a storm cloud. I'm not really getting the spirit of clouds here. So the spirit cards are a little opaque to me. But then, you know, court cards often are problematic. So the Ace of Trees. Got, looks like a giant redwood. And this is like, yes, have a giant redwood. To me, this would be like the spirit of trees right here, because they're so ancient. So I have a hard time thinking of this as the Ace of Trees, just because that's one old tree. The Two of Trees, so like the Two of Wands, sitting there and contemplating, and you do have various younger trees there. Windows into the world. Three of Trees, he's on his way. Four of Trees, you've got that festive air. And I wonder if that statue there looks a little bit like a statue of Bacchus. This right here. If I get it close again. Looks like it might be a statue of Bacchus. So yes, revelry. Revelry among the trees. Very fitting. Five of Trees, so Five of Wands. So we have that competitive contest with jousting. So the wand is the jousting stick. What do you call that? Lance. The lance. My brain is just, I was just thinking, how could I forget that? You know, I was into sort of the romance of that sort of thing, and I've seen people do jousting at Renaissance festivals. And here I can't, I even have a cousin by the name of Lance, and I forget the word Lance. So here's the 6. Again, they're all headed out. So, you know, to me this has a little different meaning. There's still kind of a sense of celebration. There's this interesting figure over here, maybe beckoning them. Is it a monk? I don't know. And my webcam isn't going to help me. There it is. Yep, looks like a monk. What a beautiful image. 7 of trees. So you've got that little itty bitty figure there, but you know, they've made it to a certain high ground, and I like the way the trees here are kind of acting like they're reaching up there. So there's even a little bit of that sense of, you know, the wands coming for him, but really a much more peaceful 7 of wands, if you look at it that way. So this is definitely going to be a deck for me to sit with, because I'm just thinking that's a much more peaceful, and a lot of them are. And so this might be, I mean, it might be a good deck for me, just because, as I've mentioned to some in various videos, that my life is pretty darn quiet. So maybe it will be very fitting for me in that regard. Muted drama, or very little drama. But, you know, in the coming year, 2020, I've got a goal of going through 12 decks and just sort of getting a feel for what, if they're going to stick with me, and if so, kind of what their purpose is going to be for me. You know, how are we going to get along? What kind of readings can we do together, kind of a thing. And unfortunately, I've got all 12, and there are 12 that I've been needing to do this with. So this one will have to wait. It will have to wait. But I'm sure that's where I'll go with this. You know, again, I could just treat it as an art deck that I take out every now and then and look at. But if I'm going to use it, it will be a sit with deck. A deck to sit with for a while. 8 of Wands. So I like that she found an image where all of the branches are kind of reaching in a given direction. So that makes a lot of sense to me. This makes sense as the 9. She says their endurance, resilience. It's like, I don't care how much snow you pile on me, this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm staying. The 10 of trees. So I know that she's limited. And I don't know why she limited herself in this way. You know, if there are copyright issues or what. But I would have wanted more like a lumberjack kind of a thing. But I get she's got the harvesting aspect, and I don't hear very many people talking about the harvesting aspect of the 10 of Wands, but it's certainly there. And so anyway, these are some people doing the hard work to bring in the harvest. So again, we've kind of shifted to it being about the people and not the landscape. All right, so let's. So here's our steward of trees. Beautiful image, but a little. Actually, it looks like that's might be water. There appears to be a reflection there. So the eternal flame. Rider of trees. He's going very fast at any rate. And it's interesting because, you know, it's rider of trees, but all the trees have been cut down. This is an area that's been clear cut with a little house there. And this person, this rider, is just riding through. It's like rider through the death of trees. Creature of trees. And at first I was like, why? Why would you have bears? Bears are so earthy and in the cave and stuff. And then I thought, well, but what they're showing here is kind of not only bears and trees, but you know, and I could have seen raccoons as being an even better one, but try to find, you know, art with raccoons in it, is the curiosity aspect. Like if you take this as being, instead of the queen, which is, it's in the position of the Queen of Wands, as instead being the Page of Wands, and that curiosity and desire to go out into the world and explore it. Well, certainly baby bears, and even adult bears, and if you give them something, they smell food, they will explore and they will do all kinds of antics to break into whatever they perceive has a reward. So interesting. Spirit of trees. And again, this is where I would have wanted the redwood, to be honest. Now, there does seem to be, maybe that's supposed to be like the tree of life, or the white tree of, what is it in Minas Tirith in the Lord of the Rings? The white tree of what? Anyway, there's a tree up there on top of a building, which I hadn't noticed when I first looked at it. So maybe that's what that spirit of trees is about. Ace of water. That makes a lot of sense to me, kind of being, you can't see mountains there, but I'm assuming there are mountains in the background. And, that's where these creeks come from. They're coming down from snowmelt. Two of water. Again, this time it's about the people, very sweet. Four of, where's my three? Uh-oh, I got my waters mixed up. One moment. Steward, Rider. Where's my waters? Well, I was putting it back. Clearly something went amiss. Here it is. What we would expect. Again, a little revelry around the water. And so I think I've got the four right here, the four of water. He's not being offered anything, but he's clearly in a state of reflection about what he wants. Here's the five of water. Again, lacking the cups, but somebody who does seem to be in mourning. And there is sort of, a way to step away from that situation. So she is willfully coming down to brood by the water. Six of water. So here you have to notice there's a face in the clouds. So yeah, it works, but it could have been the seven. That could have been the seven of cups. But this is a very interesting seven of cups, because what are those? What is going on there? You've got these little babies, I think, or is it men? But I mean, it looks like they don't have shirts. They might have white pants, but you've got this convocation here of, I don't even know if there's no wings that I can see. So what the heck are they? Cool image. But I'm not sure for the seven of water. I'm going to look up and see what the title of that is. All right, it's the plains of heaven, so maybe they are supposed to be angels. She says seraphim. In a fantastic vision, seraphim flow like clouds into the wind, as cherubs, yes, they are little babies, play on the flowering cliff. Okay, so it is, you know, a fantasy, essentially. So what was that? 7. There we go. 8 of water. So kind of, I feel like this person represents the 8 of Cups more than these two, but to me the 8 of Cups is kind of a go find yourself kind of a card. But again, do I have to have 8 of Cups in the deck, or can I see the 8 of Cups in maybe one of the other cards? Yeah. The 9 is Geyser. This is probably Old Faithful. So I suppose it's your wish if you wait, since Old Faithful, you can count on it. It can be wish fulfillment in a touristy kind of way. It's like they've come this way to see this wonder, this thing that they've heard about, and so it's a wish fulfillment in that way. The 10 of Cups is just happy, you know. So this makes me think a lot of the 6 of Cups, because you've got these 2 kids down here. But you've got the house and the cows and the mountains and the, you know, so it works also for 10. Here's our steward is actually a physical person in this one, or seems to be. You know, there's the clothing left there, taking a skinny dip. The rider of water is a boat. And again, you know, this reminds me of the 6 of Swords as well. Could stand in for the 6 of Swords. We've got seals or sea lions as our creature of water. And then here's our spirit of water, which looks like it might be Niagara. It might be. And then she provides some fantastic element cards, which could be their own thing. So we have the clouds or air here, the little element symbol there. We've got trees here, very interesting in the sense of all of the dead trees there. And then obviously water. There's my rich blues. There's those blues I love. Earth, the mountain, and you know, all of them together. Water, earth, you got some trees, you got some clouds up there, everybody all together. So there it is, the Majestic Earth Tarot. I've jumped on this bandwagon a little, oh, I'm totally blurred out, a little earlier than usual, but I'm sure I would be surprised if this is the first time anybody's seen this deck is on my channel. I don't know if she was Etsy or Kickstarter to start with, but it is now available on Amazon And it's directly from her on Amazon. And it came to me quite quickly. Can you focus before I leave? No, it's stuck. Fair enough. I'll let you guys all go. Take care, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.